After 2 days of sobering discussions spanning supply chains, cognitive warfare, cyber operations, air power, and strategic forecasting, this is a moment to step back and ask what the commanding view looks like and what the obligations of this community are moving forward. General Nakasone is exceptionally well positioned to discuss this next. He led both U.S. Cyber Command and the National Security Agency for 6 years, witnessing firsthand how technologies like AI have transformed intelligence and operations. Now, from both academic and private sector vantage points, he continues to engage these challenges. His commitment to Vanderbilt's Institute of National Security helps sustain this kind of cross-sector dialogue we've seen over the last 2 days of the summit. I suspect that his remarks will not just serve as a conclusion, but will serve as a call to action. Please join me in welcoming General Nakasone.
Well done. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am the good news after that last panel. Let me begin with something I just want to share with you, an observation. So as I sat there and was wondering the progress of our summit, I would always turn to look at Lindsay Wilson from Ink Factory to see where they were on the illustration of what's happened during really a day plus of what's going on. This is a tremendous graphical presentation of what's occurred really over the past 2 days. I encourage you all, before you go home today, take a look. And Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us again this year. Well done. I also want to thank today a series of 5 National Security Fellows, our inaugural class of fellows that we named last summit, that I asked to be part of our journey in our institute. Now, these are accomplished national security leaders from Canada and the United States, from both military and civilian and private sector. But I thought what would be most appropriate is if we just showed a clip of not only them, but also what they've done over the past year. So can we roll the video, please?
Service to the nation, a good deal of it is doing something greater than yourself. I really believe in the mission of the Institute. I believe in the people that are involved in this effort. It's great to be part of the Vanderbilt community with a focused mission, surrounded by people that are like-minded and dedicated to winning.
Being a fellow at the Institute of National Security has been an amazing experience. I've gotten to work with these great professors at Vanderbilt, getting early access to their research, and I've also gotten to meet amazing Vanderbilt students.
It's been an incredible privilege to be a fellow. I've gotten to experience deep conversations about national security, and the best part is getting to spend time with the students. One of the things I noticed immediately is how curious they are about the world and all different parts of how the national security apparatus works. I believe that the future will be won by cross-functional teams of people that are moving in the same direction together.
There's no substitute for domain expertise. So I think when you take some of the best and brightest students at Vanderbilt University and you expose them to leaders in national security, there's an amazing opportunity to get exposed to problems that matter. And the leaders, myself included, get exposed to students who are more AI native than any other cohort, and that cross-pollination of latent skill and potential married to problems that matter is really where I think a lot of magic happens.
It's so encouraging to see these students getting access to real-world leaders. It's been great to visit with the students and hear their curiosities about the national security landscape, and so it's really important that they have these opportunities to work with technical leaders and understand exactly how that's going to factor into their decision-making in the future.
These are some of the best and brightest minds in the country, and it's really invigorating, midway through my career to be around. There's no better field than national security to keep this great country safe.
So with departure of our inaugural class of fellows, I'm really, really happy to introduce the fellows for 2026, 2027. Please roll the video. Welcome, fellows. So yesterday we began a discussion, and our chancellor talked about really Nashville being the third leg of the stool. Remember, we began in the new year in Davos, Switzerland, with a discussion on geopolitics and the economics of what's going on in the world. We moved from Davos to Munich to have very distinct discussions on security and military matters. And now we move to Nashville. This is yesterday, day one, 1,100 people here in our auditorium to talk not only national security, military security, but with this idea of Tennessee hospitality. And so thank you for joining on really the third leg of what has now become Davos to Munich to Nashville. Let's return to the idea of the shadow of war, the illusion of peace. Because this is the third event of the entire National Security Week. We began on Monday at Vanderbilt, Student Leadership Day. We had our students being able to talk with a number of different experts from national security about futures in what we do, about leadership in this changing age, and also about the opportunities for all of us as we think about service in the future. The second piece of this was our academic workshop day on Wednesday. We are an academic university that does very good research. We had a series of different workshops that looked at a variety of different issues to see how it impacted national security. And then, of course, yesterday and today, we came to the summit. We came to talk about the shadow of war, the illusion of peace, national security, and the age of asymmetry. And you may recall over the past couple days an incredible breadth of quotes, and I wanted to capture some of my quotable quotes from the past 2 days. I'll give you a second to look at the slide. Remember our chancellor talking about being bilingual? This idea of both being in the policy world and being technically an expert. And then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff taking time out of his incredibly busy schedule to come to Nashville to talk about multi-different domain operations and what was so important in terms of being able to do that at speed and at relevance. Yesterday I had a fascinating conversation with former Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo. Someone who I think has really captured both the importance of why technology matters in national security and how do we move from an idea to implementation to really an outcome with her work with the CHIPS Act. And then I would share with you today my good friend, General Kurilla. Obviously, General Kurilla can really fill a space. He can also offer some ideas that I think we probably should think, much differently about. He talked about his experiences and a series of different inflection points. He talked about the importance of what's going to go on in the next 2 weeks. He also talked about the future. And then, of course, as we take a look at the final thoughts here, we've had an ability to hear speakers over the past couple days in a different form of dialogue I would share with you. One that is apolitical, one that was really kind of generated by this idea that at the end of the day, what we need to do is to ensure the national security of our nation and our allies. So let me capture a few of my thoughts as I reflected over the past couple days. Let me begin with this idea first. What do we look like right now? I'm a believer of what Fred Kagan just said in the last panel, is that the ideas of a bipolar world where we're either at peace or war, those days are done. We are in a series of competition, crisis, or conflict. And I think at different parts and at different places in the world, we can be in multiple different areas. We can be in competition sometimes, crisis in another, and even conflict in other parts of the world as we see ourselves today. The second thing I would tell you is that for many years, particularly when I came into the military, the idea of two large oceans and very friendly neighbors to our north and our south was really how we thought about our ability to have time and distance to ensure our national security. Those days are done. And I think the last panel really talked about that very, very clearly, that there is a tremendous challenge that we face today in the sense of borderless threats. And then in terms of, we talk about the idea of valuable threats, vulnerable threats. As we think over the past 2 days, how many times we've heard about our critical infrastructure and the fragility of our critical infrastructure and what we needed to do to prioritize our critical infrastructure. Vulnerable threats. So let's talk a little bit about where we're moving towards. A common theme, democratizing asymmetry. The idea of, a nation state having all the tools and all the power to be able to really have national security, those days are done. I think we've seen that with artificial intelligence. The idea that really the private sector, for the most part, is driving this incredible disruptive technology of the future. The other thing is, truly, we heard over the past couple days about speed. I would offer to you, when I became the director of the National Security Agency, the rough time for an intrusion to be discovered was about 9 hours and some odd minutes. And that's from spotting a vulnerability to being able to have an adversary get into your network, to be able to move left or right, to accelerate privileges. Really, it took about 9 hours for an adversary to do it. Last year, the common theme was at less than a minute. This is speed. This is what we're seeing with regards to what our adversaries are able to do today. And then I would say the last thing is, as our panel just discussed, trust. We don't think a lot about trust, but I would tell you that trust is essential for anything that we are going to do. Trust between, obviously, our allies, trust with our partners, trust between the public and private sector, trust within academia, trust within our nation. A tremendous component that I think we don't probably think enough of. And I would tell you, so what does it require? How do we be successful? How do we ensure our national security, the future? I think these things truly matter. How do we not only be an innovative nation, but how do we integrate the technologies that are going to ensure the security of our nation in the future? How do we have a degree of resilience? Can't remember who said it, but resilience is this idea of being able to take a punch. Deterrence is being able to tell who was punching you. Well, let's make sure that we can take a punch. And that's one of the things that I think all of the panelists have talked about over a series of 2 days. And last part, one of the things I hope you take with you from our conversations over the summit is the fact that at the end of the day, really the magic sauce is leadership. Whether or not you heard it from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, whether or not you heard it from Gina Raimondo, whether or not you heard it from Eric Kurilla, or whether or not you heard it from our panelists, at the end of the day, it all matters in terms of a vision, an ability to motivate, an ability to see the future, and ability to inspire action. It is truly leadership. I'm often asked, hey, what do we have to do to ensure our own security? I'm a big believer in this idea of competitive advantages. What are the things that we can do that are truly better than anyone else? I do believe the first one is one of the things that any of the panelists would begin their statement of, we are an innovative nation. We have incredible talent, but that's not always a given. And so we have to make sure that, as the Chancellor talked about, the role of academic universities is critical for our national security in the future. The role of being able to understand and ensure the right laws and policies are in place. And I would tell you that I'm also a huge believer in alliances and partnerships. And from the last panel, I would just offer, now, whatever those alliances and partnerships are going to show in the future, remember what General Kurilla talked to us about today. It's so much easier to have alliances and partnership before a crisis than when after a crisis starts. Overflight, basing, access, those are all things that are done with partnerships early on. I can share with you, intelligence and information and working together, those are partnerships that matter every single day. And they're not built in crisis, they're built well before a crisis. And the last thing I would just share with you is incredibly important that we continue to be a democracy that has transparency. The things that we do the things that we're held accountable for, the values that we have, that all begins with this idea of being a transparent and being an accountable nation. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as we think about that, I would offer you, those are our competitive advantages. Those are things that we have to work towards. So my final thoughts as we think about the conclusion of our 5th summit. First of all, I'm incredibly grateful for all the folks here in the Institute and the university that really put on what I think is a fantastic summit. So if you are part of the Institute or the university, would you please stand? So the second I word I'll use is inflection point. I'm really proud of where we're at in terms of where the summit is today, but obviously not satisfied. And this idea of what the future is, it begins here as we think about what we've been able to do over the past couple days. But next year as you come back, and next year as we have well over 2,000 people, I'm sure, we're looking forward to having you join us again. And the last thing I would just share with you is my final thought is thanks to all of you. Thanks for making an investment in our institute. Thanks for making an investment in your time. Thanks for being part of what has been, for us, a really, really valuable 2 days. Thanks a lot, and enjoy your trip home.